And I honestly felt hugely relieved when we finally came to the conclusion, like, he didn't want me to try to push him to be different than he was. And I didn't want to be pulled into something that I wasn't either. And so, we have I have so much love for each other, and we are so closely aligned in the way that we raise our family and the business of our home and, all those things. And so it's like, can we not just have a healthy respect that we have different perspectives on this particular topic? And I do think there's also like one mindset is much more socially acceptable than the other. And so like when I veer out to go be me, which is the poly life, that is definitely not socially understood nearly as much. And so I am kind of seen as the person who is screwing it up, right? Like, why are you screwing up a perfectly beautiful thing? And it's like, I've always been this way, guys. I've always been this way. And so this is not me running off having a midlife crisis. This is who I have been for my entire adult life. And so that part has been interesting because I just there's not a lot of understanding out there for the poly in a mono-poly dynamic.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 435. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a lovely conversation with Candace. Candace is a queer, polyamorous mom in her mid-40s who's been together with her husband for about 11 years and has been exploring non-monogamy consensually for about 15 years or so.
Yeah, this is such a great conversation to take. Candace has lived a whole lot of life in her 45 years, and we're excited to be able to share her story with you all. As Emma said, it's been about 15 years since Candace started exploring non-monogamy consensually, but as you'll hear, it kind of took hitting rock bottom at around age 30 to snap her out of some old habits and to pretty much reshape her entire approach to relationships. She ended up swinging on her own for a few years before meeting her now husband, and then over the course of about 7 years, they slowly expanded their relationship to where it is today.
Yes, today Candace is polyamorous, her husband is monogamish, and they have what they call a polysphere with about 50 people in it that spans both coasts of the U.S. And they're a bicoastal family where part of the year they live together on the East Coast, then the West Coast, and part of the year apart. Again, we cover a lot in this conversation with Candace, and we're excited to jump into it.
And real quick before we do, Candace is also the author of an upcoming book that we're really excited about as well. It is called Polyagony, The Art of Repair in Open Relationships. In it, she shares deeply personal stories from her own life alongside the experiences of 100 other people who courageously shared their own mistakes, lessons, and breakthroughs in open relating. And these stories explore how we build love, break love, repair love, and ultimately find our way back to ourselves and the families we create. The first book of the trilogy will be out later this year, but you can go pre-order your copy of the whole trilogy for just $50 right now using the links in the show notes. I was actually surprised when I saw this. It's a pretty damn sweet deal, so please go check it out and grab your copy of the whole trilogy, again, using the links in the show notes.
Also, Candace sticks around to answer some bonus questions for our premium subscribers. If you're not familiar, our premium subscribers get ad-free podcast episodes plus a new 10 to 15-minute bonus episode every week where our guests answer some fun extra questions and give us an opportunity to get to know them at an even deeper level than we do during our regular interview. To sign up for the premium subscription, you can head over to our brand new website and scroll down on the homepage to sign up for just $4 a month. And now, for all of our premium subscribers, we're going to jump right into the interview. And for the rest of you, a few announcements.
The first announcement is that we are less than 2 months away from relationship recess. You've been hearing us talk about this for months because it's coming up and we're super excited and we want you to be there. So you are invited to join us. We are hosting a restorative retreat called Relationship Recess at a queer-friendly private property in Florida this May 1st to the 3rd, 2026, just outside Orlando, Florida. This event is going to be focused on nourishing connections and personal growth through the power of peer, authentic play, and deep deep exploration.
We've partnered with our friends from Multiamory and Gary Ware, who's a strategic play consultant, to bring you an amazing weekend. So what can you expect?
Tell them what they can expect, Emma.
I know. We kick off with speed friending and a few other activities to help break the ice. And then throughout the weekend, we'll have facilitated small group sessions digging into some of Multiamory's practical tools like microscripts and radar. And Gary is designing games and activities to help deepen our friendships and connections with others and to ourselves. Plus, Emily is hosting a karaoke party, Dedeker's leading a pinball tournament, and so much more.
And if you're thinking, well, I really just want to come and relax without all these workshops and play shops, well, we've got you covered there as well. The property we've rented is full of tons of different ways to unwind, relax, and just be. We've got human-sized foosball, pickleball courts, a hot tub, a lazy river, a movie theater, a giant water slide, canoes, kayaks, hammocks in the woods, a campfire, and more. I really just ran out of breath, so I couldn't keep naming all the things. This place is amazing.
Absolutely. Everyone is welcome, whether you're partnered, solo, or coming with your friends or polycule. This event is open to the public. However, our community members do get a discount. All of the meals, snacks, and drinks are included. And additionally, we have a discounted block of hotel rooms nearby exclusively for our guests.
So please head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the banner at the top, and you can find out a ton more information about Relationship Recess. You can see pictures of the property. You can see videos. You can see a list of the schedule for the weekend. So again, everything you could ever imagine is over there. Plus, you can grab your tickets before the prices go up on April 1st.
Come and join us.
Go do it.
Next up, we also wanted to remind you that we lead a community full of 300 people socializing and supporting one another every single day. We host the community on a platform called Mighty Networks, and we have monthly community support Zoom calls, monthly virtual workshops, and in-person events as well, all for less than $10 a month.
And one of the things that we did mention just a minute ago, if you are a member of our community, you do get a discount on Relationship Recess. So just another little incentive, a little perk to be a part of that. And you also get the premium subscription that we were talking about at the beginning for free as well. So really, you would be foolish not to join the community.
Right, exactly. Also, we have monthly workshops, and our next monthly workshop is going to be March 12th.
That's this week.
That's this week.
That's tomorrow.
Yes, with Marla Renee Stewart, who owns her own sex ed company called Velvet Lips and is the co-founder of the Sex Down South Conference. This week's workshop is simply called Seduce Your Lover, and you're not going to want to miss it. However, if you do miss it or you're listening to this at a later date, recordings of all of our previous workshops are available to community members. To find out more, go over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, click on the community tab, and everything is right there.
Yeah, one other quick note about these workshops. We have, as Emma said, we have workshops every single month. There is also a workshops tab on our website where you can see full descriptions of the workshop that's coming up this week, plus all of the ones that we have coming up the rest of this year, and all of the ones that we had earlier this year and last year. So you can see everything that you would get when you join the community. So head over to that tab as well and check those out.
Next up, we wanted to remind all of you about our favorite way to get tested for STIs. It is stdcheck.com. We tell you about it every week. This is fast, easy, and discreet. And when you use the links, you get $10 off, making a 10-panel test only $129. Those links are over on the resources tab of our website. And by using those links, you could support the podcast and the show as well. Thank you in advance for doing so.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this is the service that Emma and I use.
Yes, you just used it.
We've been using it for years. I just got my test done last week, and it was so fast. So definitely check this out. And thank you again, as Emma said, for supporting the podcast. And the really last thing this time is just that we wanted to remind you all to please send us an email. We would love to hear from you if you have any questions, feedback, thoughts about the podcast, or best of all, you want to come on to share your story, you can do so. You can find all that information on the Contact Us tab. And again, we would love to hear from you.
And with that, let's go and talk to Candace.
Welcome to the podcast, Candace. We're excited to chat today. We're excited to hear your story, get to know you a little bit better, talk a little bit about your book, and get your story out there. So thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm a bit of a fangirl, so this is really fun. I'm pumped to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're pumped too. So let's just jump in and have you introduce yourself for anybody out there who's not familiar with who you are, including us, because we met you 32 seconds ago.
Great. Yeah. Happy to introduce myself. So my name's Candace, and I am a 45-year-old bi-queer poly mom. I've been married for 11 years. I have a almost 7-year-old son, and I am a corporate executive. I am an author, and I also facilitate workshops that are focused on emotional intelligence for adults and relationships.
Amazing. Well,
Yes.
excited to dig into all of that. And maybe just real quick up front, you threw author out there, and we already kind of we let everybody know that you've got a book coming out soon. Maybe you just want to touch on the book, and then we'll figure out where we kind of dig into your story.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. So I am publishing a book called Polyagony, All the Ways We Fuck Up Open Relating. And so this is from 15 years of life, lived experience plus 100 plus interviews with people who've opened up their relationships over time. There are 100 different fuck up stories in the book, and then there are exercises and tips and tricks to work through them.
Amazing.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
just to confirm, are these all your 100 stories, or
Oh,
are
no,
these
no, no,
stories?
no.
Okay.
What's interesting, yeah, so I interviewed 100 people, but what's interesting is that while there were 100 interviews, the themes were very consistent, across. So we all tend to fuck up in exactly the same ways. So that
Yeah.
was I don't know if that was heartening or alarming, but
I'm curious. I've maybe if I throw a guess out, are they communication? Is that at the
oh,
top?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
What I'm curious. That's like the only one that's coming to mind. Is like
No,
communication,
so I
scheduling.
like, yeah, it's kind of like Jeopardy board, right? So, like, think
Yeah.
of it like as so often it starts with intention, like, what was the intention in the first place? Did you even mean to do this, or did you fall into it? So there's a bunch of hookups around that.
Yeah.
Then there's communication, which is the biggest one, and then there's the whole category around agreements and, like, whether you
Yeah.
ever created them, and if you did you break them? And then there's a whole section on play parties and group dynamics and, like, how do you even navigate those things? And then there's just like the relation shift of poly, right? Like, it's not like we're together or we broke up. There's like all these phases in between, and it gives you lots more opportunities for fuck ups because there's so much fluidity. And
Yeah.
so those are the main categories.
I love it. Yeah, that last one, the ambiguity sometimes, like one person thinks you're quote unquote together, the other person thinks you're broken up, and you're not really doing it either way because it's sort of in the middle. Yeah. Never been
Hmm.
there, but I can imagine it's crazy.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well,
Well, thank you for sharing about that. I'm so excited to read your book and to get it out there as well. And I'm sure there'll be questions woven through this podcast too. So I'd love to start a little bit about describing what your relationship ecosystem looks like today.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, I am married. I've been together for 11 years, married for 10 and a half. And we have a 6.5-year-old son. So we have a really beautiful home on the East Coast, but we're bicoastal as a family. So we're on the West Coast in the summer together. We're on the East Coast in the spring and fall together. And I am on my own on the West Coast in the winter. And I have a polysphere, I call it. So I have both a East Coast polycule and a West Coast polycule. And it's kind of funny. I now bring them together. I host events, and like the East Coast flies to California and the West Coast flies to Boston. But there are about 50 people in the polysphere who, have been somehow related in some way over the years, and we are a fairly tight knit community that are kind of all over the country and even the world.
wow.
That's
That's
so
That's
cool.
amazing. I love
Yeah.
that the West Coast, East Coast, having communities in both places, and then to bring them together, because that's not an easy thing to get people to. I can just say the people here in the West Coast do not like to leave,
Yep.
and I think the East Coasters have a little bit of that as well.
There's also a massive difference in mindset.
Yes.
I joke with my East Coast polycule. I'm like, God, you guys make it so hard. You make it so much harder than it has to be. There's so much more politics, and they're in their heads, and they're intellectualizing everything. And then the West Coast polycule is just so easy. And so I'm like, you got to fly out here and see what I'm talking about. So.
Yep, yep. Well, it's good to learn from both
Yes.
coasts.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
Yeah,
and the East Coasters are highly emotionally intelligent. They're highly intelligent, and so like they really dig deep. They do the work, like they
yep.
get in there. They communicate almost too much. And so it's just funny, the differences.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah. I love that, and I love that people are learning from each other
Yep.
too. Like the
Mhm.
differences being able to come together and be like, to balance that. I think it's so important.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Well, I'm curious, taking us back, you kind of dropped that it was about 15 years or so that you've been exploring non-monogamy. I'm
Mhm.
curious, what happened 15 years ago? And is that sort of where the story started for you, or does it go back even further than that?
It might go back even further than that. For me, I'll say 15 years ago is when it became an honest practice for me. So before 15 years ago, I just cheated on every partner I ever had. And like it was a habitual thing. It was an issue for me. And then in 2013, I was sued for fraud from my business, not related to my sex life, but from in my
Hmm.
business. And while I wasn't guilty of that thing I was being sued for, I took a real inventory of my life. And I was like, I kind of am a fraud in some aspects of my life. And that was really around my sexual identity. And I was like, I just, why am I doing these things this way? And that's when I moved to California. So I moved to San Diego, and the very first people I met were open. They were all either some swinger, poly, something in between. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do this and be honest. That's amazing. And so I became a unicorn in the swinger scene for many years, for about 5 years before meeting my husband, and kind of have shifted and evolved over time. And so now, I veer more towards polyamorous now, but it's been lots of flavors, like Baskin Robbins 32 flavors over over the
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we'll just kind of keep maybe working through your story, but I'm curious to talk about those early years of, going from this is a thing that I imagine there was a bit of shame wrapped up in, like, if you're
Sure.
constantly cheating on people, and like if these accusations of fraud sort of bring this to your forefront, what is it like to land in an environment then where you don't have to hide and you get to start exploring these things in a way that's like, I don't know, more open?
Yeah, it was like an existential crisis for me, when this happened, when I got sued, and I considered suicide, like it was that existential, and instead I went to a meditation school and went trekking in Nepal for a few months, and while I was in Nepal, I was summoned to San Diego. I can say nothing like no, I had no other explanation. So I went to San Diego with like no job, no plan, no place to live, and like $37 in my bank account. Like I was like at rock bottom, right? And and at that point, I just felt awful. I felt like, like I had some realizations around childhood trauma when I was 20, and at that moment I just became like super promiscuous. Like I just had no self-respect. It was like maybe it was like a self-loathing thing all through my 20s. And then, this existential crisis hit and I was like, enough, everybody has to have something like that moment. And that was it for me. And then when I came to California, it was like the first time that it was kind of like I was being born all over
Mm,
again, right? Like, it was just like I was like, open my eyes, like there's a new way of living my life. And so from that moment forward, while I was in meditation school in Nepal, I was like, I will live honestly, period. And like whatever that looks like. And then that's when I fell into a company that needed my exact skill set. I met my husband within a couple of years. I met my whole poly community. Like life just started happening for me in that moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. But you had to do the work to be open to that too. And
Yeah.
to kind of surrender to the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a control piece of this too that I think I was trying to keep everything under control, and that was part of like trying to manage multiple relationship type of thing. And then now that I've been in this for a while, there's no control. There's relationship and communication, but there's no control. And then I think you have to release that before you can move into a space like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I'm curious what it was like for you being a unicorn in the world of swinging. I think, we you hear in the mainstream it's the mainstream non-monogamy media, I suppose, that like, unicorns and unicorn hunting has such a negative connotation,
Yeah.
and there's no argument here that there is definitely some really toxic, shitty stuff that happens around unicorn hunting. But I'm curious, for your personal experience, being the unicorn, navigating non-monogamy for the first time, just like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wrote a whole chapter on it because there were lots of fuck ups.
Yeah.
But it's a very juicy chapter. But I guess what I would say is like coming into this as a single person is always hard anyway. There's like power dynamics and control disparities and hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. But particularly as a unicorn, because often unicorns are treated like a toy. Like you're not
Mhm.
a real human. You don't have real needs.
Yep.
That wasn't necessarily my experience though. You know, like I loved it. It was the first time that it really kind of landed into my bisexuality and like owning that I'm queer. And like I was like, oh, this is a place where I can be that and where it's celebrated and embraced. And so I loved that part. I loved that I could truly be bisexual. The parts that were hard, and I didn't need to have a boyfriend. I wasn't like looking for like, you know, my hubby. I actually never saw myself getting married, and I didn't get married till I was 35. So like it wasn't a priority for me to have a boyfriend. But with couples, it's fun. And like there's like that piece. But whenever it came down to like actually starting to have feelings, became very complicated. It became very hard to navigate differing levels of attachment between two different people, and it never worked out. You know, people were always like, "Oh, you're looking for a boyfriend." I was like, "No, actually, I'm not." And these are your dynamics that are playing out right now, and you're projecting it. So it got complicated, but. You know, I joke with my polysphere that I was like unicorn of the year because because I always defer to the woman. 100% of the time I deferred to the woman. And I was like, you are in control in this environment with me. I am not gonna I'm not gonna try to step in any way. You are driving this show. And so for the first few years, it was great. It was, you know, like I didn't really run into any problems. It was only when feelings started to develop
Mhm.
that it got murky.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People's systems started to freak out a little bit, I would imagine.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's totally normal.
Right.
I expect that, but like, you know, I think one of the things if I were to do it all over again, I would have, you know, and this is one of the things I talk about in the book is like I would understand what my own values were first and what I wanted,
Mm.
because I found myself deferring so heavily to the woman in the couple that I was dating that I wasn't a stand for
Yeah.
what I
Mhm.
wanted for
Yeah.
myself. And I often was the one who ended up injured, in
Yeah.
the end, emotionally injured. And so like I would spend a lot more time on that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that sort of a byproduct of like getting sort of discarded? Like when like the mess of feelings happened, it was sort of you were the one that's going to get cut from the dynamic. Is that what would usually happen?
No, sometimes that was, you know, sometimes it was like, oh, this is only sexual. Like this,
Mhm.
clearly there's not enough value in this,
Yeah.
for them to, you know, pursue something more. So that was probably part of it. That wasn't the part that was the hardest though. When I talk about being injured, I talk about like those feeling disparities, right?
Yeah.
So like one person, either the man or the woman, and I've only ever dated male female couples,
Mhm.
but in that environment, one of them would inevitably attach quicker than the other, or
Yeah.
I would attach more deeply with one than the other,
Mhm.
and then it would just create the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
There'd be triangulation, and that's the part because
Yeah.
whenever that happens, when triangulation happens, the one who gets cut, the one who gets blamed, the one who gets moved out is the single female.
Yeah.
And so like if someone violated their boundaries with their child, like you know they agreed they weren't going to come out to their kids, and then suddenly a teenage kid was home and I didn't know, and we were on a date, whatever, you know, I'm the bad guy, even though I had no idea about their agreement, I had no idea about the kid. Somehow it was me, you know, and that type of thing happened over
Yeah.
and over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean by that. Yeah, that you're just an innocent bystander walking into a situation, and all of a sudden, that's where the blame's gonna get laid,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
Communication.
yeah, communication. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that, Candace, and you know, it sounds like too there were some positive things for you that came through that time as well, like exploring your bisexuality, but
Mhm.
like also some challenges around how the dynamics play out. And that three-way dynamic is, I think it's hard even under like, we'll say the best of circumstances, but I think, and again, I don't know, maybe judging or making a lot of assumptions, but I think sometimes in that swinging unicorn scene, that's often the time that people are looking for the first time. Like it's
Mhm.
usually they're fairly new to it, and that often I think creates room for some more like surprising feelings to come up that maybe people weren't expecting or didn't think were possible when they're like, well, we're just going to like fool around and have a great time. And inevitably feelings do happen, even if they're
Yeah.
not like, oh my gosh, I'm madly in love and I want to run off with you. But like ha- feelings come up when you're fooling around, hooking up, seeing
And
people.
it's also like even like seeing your partner kiss someone for the first time.
Yeah.
Like I have a story with one of my former part or one of my partners that they there was I introduced a threesome. It was like me who introduced the threesome, right? And I
Mhm.
was really excited about it. And I'm supposed to be the one who's like well versed at this stuff. And I introduced the threesome. And then afterwards, I freaked the fuck out. Like I was just like I got so in my head about it, and I was like, "Oh, I really like this person," and I just introduced this, and I've just ruined my own relationship, and I'm the one who ended up like in my feelings, and I'm like supposed to be a pro at this stuff, and like, so like the emotions come up at weird times that you would never
Yep.
expect.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that
Yeah.
you say that because I'm over here like throwing it all on the newbies, but this stuff can happen decades into it. You never know
Yeah,
when something's going to hit you, when you're going
Yeah.
to see
No.
something, hear
We
something.
can all make mistakes at any point.
Well, and I think sometimes they're not even mistakes.
Right.
They're just,
Right.
I just saw a thing that like freaked me out and I
Yeah.
have no idea why, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I I'm curious how this portion of your life kind of felt different from before. You went through this big shift and change and moved to San Diego, and now we're exploring
Mhm.
as a unicorn and that. And how did it really feel different for you?
So I guess up until that point, so I guess from when I was 20 until I was about 30. So for those 10 years, I was always navigating 1 to 3 loving relationships just without knowledge between the partners. And so it was a very secretive thing. It was like you had to think about alibis and like making up stories and like clouding text messages and like all of that. It was a lot of work. It was mentally just very tiring. And I think what happened for me is that shift to even in the swinger scene, and I know the swinger scene is different than the poly scene, but like in the swinger scene, it was just such a relief to just be able to be open, like tell one person I'm going on a date with another person. Like
Yeah.
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and like that, just that simply that I didn't have to like keep it a secret or cover it up. Now, one of the things that got hard when I moved to California was if I would date single men, they would try to lock it down, right? So they'd be okay with it for a little while, and they're like, "Oh, we're just not exclusive," and I'm like, "No, no." We're non-monogamous, and so at some point they'd be like, "Okay, well, we're done with that now," and I'm like, "No, no, we're not." And so it was still navigation, but at least it was not hiding things, and there was no shame, and there was integrity, and that was incredibly important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. And it sounds like through this period when you landed there, you shifted from the swinging scene into more polyamory. And I'm curious
Mhm.
what that shift was like for you and sort of where that took you on your path. It sounds like a few years into this, you also met your husband.
Yeah. When I met my husband, he was monogamous, and I was a swinger, and so like very different. I learned so much from him, and I to this day credit him for teaching me the connection between my body and my heart. And up until then, I viewed my sexuality as like cardio. I was I was very transactional, and it also is I don't know that I had the capacity for like deep loving relationships right after that like kind of traumatic experience. I don't think I was ready for that. I think
Totally.
swinging was probably exactly what I needed for those few
Hmm.
years, just to kind of practice relationships again. But as my marriage grew and as I grew as a woman, my heart now is very deeply connected to my body. And so if I'm going to let someone connect with me physically, I want to make sure that's somebody that not only like that I want to have a heart connection with, but I have a child. And so for me, it's like I want to make sure that the people I'm bringing into my child's life are emotionally sound, are healthy, are committed to building community, and so it's become so much more for me. Like I think it started off as like an outlet,
Mhm.
and it became an identity.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. I love that shift that it took time, right? That
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about those early days with meeting your husband and what that shift was for you?
Yeah, so at first, we experienced what I write about in the book as the love bubble, right? And I strongly encourage the love bubble. I think it's so important for secure attachment. But like having some dedicated time where you're focused on each other and you're not like squirrel, 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 and that was really, really important. And then like we would just introduce experiences slowly, and I came into this having like just a lot more experience in this area of life. He had a lot more experience in other areas of life, but like in this area I did. And so like I cared enough about the person I loved to be gentle with them, and their needs. And so it was very, very slow for many, many years, like every once in a while we might introduce an opportunity to connect with someone, and it may pan out and it might not, and that's okay. And like we go like years, and like it took us probably 7 or 8 years to get to a point where there was like enough trust, where we'd be like, go for it, like where we could really truly do separate dating, where we could really truly like go and be in relationship with another person and not be a threat to ours.
Mhm.
So it really took time.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Well, I think that idea of when you have one person who's like super into a thing and somebody else who's like never really experienced it. And I think especially something as fundamentally part of who we are is our sexuality, and
Hmm.
also such a big part of what we learn from the world around us, that monogamy is the way. And to come together, two people who are doing relationships very differently, like how do you create that stability, that safety and security in that? I'm also curious, how for you was it to, seems like you maybe put a little bit of the exploring your bisexuality on hold for that time frame, and I'm curious how that was for you.
It wasn't so much my bisexuality that I put on hold, because I did introduce an experience or two in that first 6 months of like where a
Okay.
woman could enter into the scene, and that wasn't threatening.
Yeah. Okay.
And these were women who were very dear friends of mine who I trusted implicitly, and like, and so that piece I was never asked to give that up, and like I didn't
Mhm.
really, but it also I wasn't like dating people, right? So
Yeah.
so like for us, it started off with like we would have experiences, like we would like curate an experience together. We would go to a hotel takeover weekend, or we would go to like a party, or we would have a double date, and maybe something would happen, maybe it wouldn't, but there would be no expectation, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't until years later that we actually would actually date someone consistently over
Got it.
time.
Yeah.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love that distinction, the like, hey, I think, often probably thrown out as monogamish, right? Like,
Mhm.
for the most part, most people would see us and most of our life is monogamous. But yeah, once in a while we go on a long weekend, or we go to an event, or we have something to mix it up, and we're not like so rigidly in the box, but
Mhm.
we're not actively, how do we bring more in? How do we bring more in?
Yeah, it's interesting. So my husband is monogamish,
Mhm.
and it's beautiful. And we we always joke, like I always like fuck my life. My husband only has eyes for me, and he's like, ah, fuck my life. My wife wants me to sleep with beautiful women. Like no, nobody feels sorry for either one of us. But what I'd say though in that is that like there gets to be space for both. And so we asked our therapist once, like, I was like, "I just don't wanna be seen as slutty," and he's like, "I don't wanna be seen as prudish," and she's like, "Isn't it possible that you 2 are just playing this game 2 different ways, and can that not work?" And we were like, "Oh, Yeah, we could. And so I see myself as a community organizer. I always have been, like whether it was in politics or business, I've always been a community organizer. And so this is a community that I think needs organizing. And so I find myself wanting to bring community together everywhere I go. I'm extroverted, like that's my jam. And in our family, like my partner is introverted, and that is awesome and beautiful. And it lends itself to a very different perspective on this topic.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
No, I love that. I'm curious how you two, as you're navigating this, right? I mean, he's learning about it. You're still learning about it. How do you arrive at the place where it's not really monopoly, but it's like monogamish slash poly? What was that process like for you trying to figure out where you both thrived and how to
Yeah.
do this?
It's interesting. A mentor of mine was like, "Oh, I have these clients." She's a therapist, and she's like, "I have these clients who are monopoly, and it's just so hard for them, and I just feel so bad for them." And I'm like, "Do you know who you're talking to right now?" Um, and so I said, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be so hard. I do think that there is a space for having just a respect for the other ways that the other person's way of seeing things. And I honestly felt hugely relieved when we finally came to the conclusion, like, he didn't want me to try to push him to be different than he was. And I didn't want to be pulled into something that I wasn't either. And so we have, like, I have so much love for each other. And like, we are so closely aligned in the way that we raise our family and the business of our home and, all those things. And so it's like, can we not just have a healthy respect that we have different perspectives on
Mhm,
this particular
mhm.
topic?
Yeah, which when you say it like that is beautiful and yet takes time, right? To
Yeah.
shift some of those mindsets, I would imagine, and like fully that's I think it's easier to respect it, but then fully accept it where you're feeling it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think there's also like one mindset is much more socially acceptable than the other. And
Yeah,
so like
that also impacts it.
when I veer out to go be me, which is the
Mhm.
poly life, that is definitely not socially understood nearly as much. And so I am kind of seen as the person who is like screwing it up, right? Like,
Mhm.
why are you like screwing up a perfectly beautiful thing? And it's like, I've always been this way, guys. I've always been this way. And so like, this is not me like running off having a midlife crisis. This is who I have been for my entire adult life. And so that part has been interesting because I just like, there's not a lot of understanding out there
Yeah.
for the poly in a monopoly dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like if something that feeling that if the relationship ends, the blame is going to be laid at the person who is exploring, who is non-monogamous's feet, typically because
Mhm.
the other person is doing it the quote unquote right way, the standard protocol of
Yeah.
relationships.
Well, I'm a lawyer. I didn't mention that in my intro, but like, I went to law school, and everything in the law is built on precedent. And so all legal precedent would lead you to believe that the non-monogamous person is in violation.
Yeah.
And so there is no precedent right now, and that's honestly why I care so much about this, and I think
Yeah.
it's why you guys care so much about this. Is
Mhm.
like, we have to create precedent somewhere. We have
Yeah.
to normalize this conversation somehow. And like, if we're not going to talk about this openly, then how is a judge ever going to rule in favor of a polyamorous couple when they're adopting a child, right? This is important stuff that we're doing,
Yeah.
normalizing this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you say that. And I think
Yeah.
even just to back it up, like there's a piece to me that's even crazier about this, which is you and your now husband came into this relationship openly talking. Like it wasn't like you tricked him into it and 3 years in you're like, by the way, here's some non-monogamy for you, right? It was like right out the gate you're both like, yeah, here's who we are and here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So you could even say, well, there is precedent from the beginning of our relationship, but it's almost like that shit doesn't even matter if it goes sideways. You're gonna be like, well, yeah, but some reason, some way it has to fall on the person who's non-monogamous.
Yeah, it's interesting. We we ran into an issue a few years ago where it was an emergency adoption scenario where there was a traumatic situation that happened between two friends of ours where
Mm.
both parents died. And there are three kids under the age of 6, like, had faced trauma and were in a pretty unsafe predicament. And so we came forward and we were like, we're already in the adoption process, and we said we would be happy to take custody of these three kids. Like, this is a life-changing decision. And we
Yeah.
went to court for months over it. And in court, it came out that we were poly. And in the end, the judge ruled against us for a number of reasons, but he specifically mentioned the poly as part of his reason for his making his decision, right? And so it was like, ah, and honestly, in that moment, I think that's something that happened for us as a couple is I think that, my husband, I believe, made the decision, I don't really need this poly stuff. Like, I really want to be a dad and I really want to grow my family, and like that's more important to me. And I totally respect that. I think that is a beautiful, way to go. And I went the opposite. I was like, I need to be an advocate for this, because if I don't speak up and if I don't start talking about this louder, then this will happen again and again and again and again, no matter whether we were the right family for these children or not, which I still firmly believe that we were. That lack of education, that ignorance on the part of
Yeah.
the judge, really had an impact on several families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. I'm really grateful you share that, because I think it can be really easy for people to be like, oh, well, yeah, it's all about the sex, or oh, you didn't get to have your but it's like, this is the real reason why normalizing this is important,
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
it's life and death stuff, it's trauma, it's adoption, it's kids who could have gone to a family that they knew that they were, already sort of part of, now can't, because you love too many people, right?
Mhm.
And in a way that's not accepted.
Yeah, and I do think too, it's like so easy to always get wrapped up in the sex, and like that's actually so little about what this is.
Yeah.
For me, like, this for me is about, I am blessed to be surrounded by beautiful people who have hearts of gold, who care deeply about my family and my child and my husband's well-being and mine, and I love expanding my family. Like, we literally we have weekly barbecues, and we have like 30 people who come, and like half are poly, half aren't, doesn't matter, right? But we want our kids to like all get to know each other, like, because this is a community. This is our family that we're growing. And I think that part gets lost often in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree completely. It does. And it's like sex is a part of it.
Sure.
And there's so much more. And I love just highlighting that too, like just like you said.
Yeah.
Well, and for some people, sex isn't even a part of it, right? We've
For
talked to
some,
so
yeah.
many people who their non-monogamous, their polyamorous partnerships are completely platonic, right?
Yep.
They maybe they cuddle, maybe they just go and do things together that have nothing to do with sex. And so
Hmm.
it's just such a damn shame. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry that you two had to go through that.
Yeah.
That
I
experience.
think everything happens for a reason. And so it's okay. Where's the silver lining in this? What can we do with this to leave the world in a better place than we found it? And
Yeah.
that's why I'm talking to you today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds like it lit a fire under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, you have kind of had this evolution with in your marriage and starting to really go slowly with this. And I just want to highlight that I know that it's not right for everybody, but for a lot of people, the slowness and the care can really go really far in how to navigate any sort of relationship structure, but especially like a monopoly dynamic where you're really honoring and respecting the other person's needs and wishes and going both ways. And
Yep.
because it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk about that in the book when there's a few chapters on agreements and like how to form agreements and when do you do it and how do you cover it? Like, how do you get into the conversation? Do you talk about your fears and hopes first? Those types of things. And one of the things that I often just recommend to couples is to always start with the lowest common denominator, with whoever is the least comfortable, and like to allow that person um, to pace the couple. And so as long as it's not like a never, right? As long as it's a okay, I'm committed to pacing this now as I'm comfortable, then you'll have far fewer fuck ups. And just take it from personal experience. And so that is one thing. And like I'm in a new partnership now with someone, and they were like, I'm fairly new to all of this, and I'd really like some time where there's not like introduction of a lot of new people. And I was like, great, let's take some time. Let's revisit in like 3 months and let's see how we feel then. And so like we commit to having checkpoints, but we do like I like just it is worth it. If you see a relationship as one that you want to have long term, then deferring to that lowest common denominator is super helpful.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I love that.
I do too. And it also spurs a kind of a question as well as in your experience, how do you balance that with the needs of somebody like the other person that is um
If you're
poten-
feeling held back.
potentially feeling held back or limited or restrained, especially if it's been quite a long time.
Yeah. So I mean that was me.
Yeah.
So think that the first mistake, the first fuck up that people often make is they create uneven agreements, meaning one person. The person who typically is more hesitant, they have more flexibility because it's like they're hesitant. So it's like, okay, well, go do anything you want to because you don't often want to do something. So they're given like, clean slate of flexibility. Whereas the person who wants to go off and run and do things is given very tight parameters. You can kiss, but you can't touch. You can kiss this person, but not this person. You have to ask me before, and I have to give a yes. And that creates power dynamic. And so that creates quite a bit of resentment that builds up over time. The things that I often recommend, I always recommend a weekly check-in and a quarterly checkpoint. So that like you can't stay still. That's the one thing, right? Like it's like we got to be moving in some direction. And so like at the weekly check-in, and I've done this for 11 years with my husband. We check in. We did it last night. We check in on how are we doing professionally, financially, emotionally, physically, sexually, and what do we need from each other in the next week, right? And so that way if something comes up like, hey, I met somebody at the grocery store and I was super intrigued and I was maybe a little bit turned on. I just wanted to let you know. And it gives you an opportunity to talk about the stuff, even if you don't act on it. My husband and I traveled for 6 months for our honeymoon after we got married. And so during that whole 6 months, we were monogamous. Like we only were with each other, partially because we were in backpacks and like all of that. But also but we would still like go to a strip club or we would still go buy a sex toy in Tokyo. Like we would still do something that was kind of edgy. And I was like, I'd like to have a pen pal. And so I asked one of my friends to send me some sexy emails. And we talked through it. So I think weekly check-ins are really helpful. And then quarterly checkpoints where it's like, okay, where you actually make requests. Like, I'd like to move this agreement, or this agreement isn't working for me. Can we I just did this with my husband last night. I know what's working, what's not working, and what gets to shift. And that way, if something's not working for one partner, they have an opportunity every quarter to bring that back up and make requests.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's again something that sounds so simple and is complicated, but it also gives people a roadmap to try
Yeah.
and see what if you implemented this for the next year, how would it feel? How is it going to
Yep.
feel different?
Yeah. And one of the things that I do in the book is I have a number of exercises that you can literally just open up a journal and just track for yourself for a certain period of time and say, okay, is this working? Is this not working? Here are some ideas for questions you can ask. Because I think that's a kind of a hard thing to get started on is like, how do we talk about this every single week? Or maybe one of your agreements is we don't talk about this every single week because that's gonna overload my nervous system. So let's keep this piece, the sexuality piece, to once a month. That can be one of the agreements.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that nothing is rigid, right?
Yes.
There's find what works for you in all of this. And I think that kind of takes forward the same mentality that we're kind of talking just generally about relationships. It's like, hey, what actually works for you? What actually works for the two of you or the three or four or five of you who are in this dynamic?
Mm.
And how do we do this in a way that just feels good for all of us?
Yeah.
I'm also kind of struck just like hearing you talk about your relationship with your husband and just a few of the different things you've shared. Like you split time across the country, sometimes together, sometimes apart for large periods of time, and also just sort of how you talked about the way you two really just support each other. Like, hey, this is what I'm needing, this is what you're needing. Why can't we just both have our almost like have our cake and eat it too? Like you're going to do it your way, I'm going to do it my way, and I think we'll just
Yeah.
puzzle pieces will fit. And I don't know, just something I was noticing, and I'd love to just talk a little bit about the way you two have fostered that support for each other that seems like it's less like enmeshed. Like you don't have to be stuck to each other all the time, but also you're building a life together and businesses together. And
Yeah.
that's a really interesting balance to make happen.
Yeah. So first, I'll say that I spent a lot of time on this also in the book because just the relationship stages I think are really helpful just to like know where are we in the
Hmm.
stages of relationship development. And so enmeshment is it's a lovely place to be for a while. You know, it's very juicy and cozy, and everyone loves to be enmeshed for some period of time. I think a lot of people get stuck there and never leave enmeshment, and is definitely not my cuppa for the rest of my life. And then at some point, as you move into maturity in your relationship, you move towards differentiation, and it doesn't have to be sexually. It can be like career wise or like hobbies. Like we have different hobbies, we enjoy different things, we go out on different nights of the week, one of us bowls and the other one reads, like whatever that is, right? But differentiation is starts to be like, okay, I don't need you, I choose to be with you. And I feel really blessed because I do feel like we got there fairly quickly to our differentiation point. And I feel really, really lucky to have a partner who gets me. Like this is, I feel like it's much harder to get me than it is to get the monogamish person, right? Like, and so, in fact, going back very in the very beginning, the very first time that right after we met, I went on a date with someone who is still, by the way, in my life today, like 11 years later, and he's very good friends with my husband, and I went on a date with this person. And I called my husband afterwards because we were long distance. And I was like, hey, this happened. I went on a date. And he said, I know, you told me you were going to. And I was like, how do you feel? And he's like, well, I have some fears that, you might leave me for another person, but I love you because of it. I love
Mhm.
you because of it. And that moment was the moment I knew I was going to marry him. I was like, it's the first time anyone ever said, I love you because of who you are, not in spite of who you are. And I do think that we've had that, like, we don't understand each other all the time. But we are committed to loving each other because of our differences. And we do see how much richer our life is because we're so different. And when we do come together, like, we're constantly enriching each other's lives. We're learning from each other. We're continuing to grow, and I feel really lucky and it's because we're so different that we are that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that you say that because it's I don't know, again, probably is mainstream media, but you meet a couple or you see the couple, one of them is bowling and the other one's off at whatever book club or cycling or whatever they're doing, and people are so quick to be like, oh well, they must be having troubles if they don't like bowling together, or they're not doing every activity that exists together. They must have something. There must be something wrong in their relationship. But when I think you step back and you really look at it and be like, actually, that's often a lot healthier to be like, hey, I'm completely content and happy and supportive of you going and doing what you want while I do what I want. And I'll see you at home later
Hmm.
tonight, or I'll see you tomorrow morning. Like, wow,
Yeah.
mind blown that we might not crawl into the same bed tonight, but our relationship isn't suffering because of it.
And that we're admittedly in an experiment right now with me being in California and my husband and son being in Boston. This is our first winter doing this,
Okay.
and but what's really interesting for me is how much more time, conscious time we're spending together. Like we do bedtime religiously every single night. Like when we go to school in the morning, we're on FaceTime, like going to school in the morning together. Like I'm home every 10 days. And so like, and then we like when we are home together, we are so present. Phones are off, out of the room. Like, and so, I look at how I've lived life for the last 5 years since post COVID.
Mhm.
I am a salesperson. I'm a traveling salesperson. That is what I do, right? So I often travel 15 to 20 days a month for work anyway. So I've always been gone for 15 days a month for 5 years. And I will tell you, I didn't religiously do bedtime every single night when I was working 15 days away from home. And so what we're saying is, how can we do this consciously? How can we do this? We've engaged our son's therapist, we've engaged his teachers. We're like, okay, how do we do this as a community to support our family structure so that because my heart is in California and his is in Boston, and that's beautiful. And we love each other very much. And so it's like, okay, this can work. We just have to be committed to it.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that how do we break the mold, right? And I loved like how conscientious, how thoughtful you are, and also how you kind of like talked about. I mean, there's so many times you can be like, well, I think Emma and I have a good example in the fact that we both sort of work from home and we're in the same apartment together. But there's so many days where we can be in the apartment for 15 hours together and not even really see each other. We pass each other. We don't, but to be truly intentional, like you said, you're going to put your phone away. You're going to be there. You can count on it, and I'm present. And someone's not talking, and you're like, just
Mhm.
humming along. And then you're like, oh, I don't actually know anything that they said. I don't remember what I agreed to. I don't know what
Yeah.
that. Like I'm actually here. I
Yeah.
think that's really
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just to clarify, your thought is to spend the winters apart, and then you'll be together in the Northeast in spring and fall, and then together in California in the summer.
Yeah. So I get seasonal affective disorder. I just cannot be in New
Yeah.
England in the winter.
Yeah.
It's impossible for me.
We understand.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not a New Englander, right? So it is pure hell for me. And so I was like, I was saying to my husband, I was like, I really like we have a fund to buy a house by California 2030, it's called, right? Like we're gonna buy a house in California by 2030. We rent a house every summer, like we have a whole community in California. And I was just like, I have got to be out there. And he was like, he recommended it. He was like, I think you should do it sooner than 2030. I think we should try it in January. And like let's make this work, so that everybody. And then I went to my son and I was like, hey, if we do this, how would this feel good to you? And he's, well, like, I mean, clearly, Mom, I'm in school at Waldorf, so you're going to have to come see me. And then I'll come out and see you on my long weekends. And then Daddy will come out together when there's like enough time. And he was just so matter of fact about it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, am I overcomplicating this? Now, who knows? I could come back in 3 months and be like, oh, well, it was an experiment. But we're committed to trying it. And that commitment to experimentation and to like partnership through experimentation is what I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and similar to what you said about relationship check-ins, right? Like, I have to imagine this isn't a thing you moved out and you're like, well, I guess we'll talk about it in 5 years and see where we're at, right?
No. Yeah.
And you're going to probably be checking in about it all along the way. How are we doing? How is this
Every
feel?
day. And our therapist is once a week. We're like, okay, and we just had a what's working, what's not working last night, and what gets to shift in the next 10 days. What do you need from me? You need childcare for workouts? Great. Let me go take care of that. So it's partnership. And whether we're, physically in the same space or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. It's such a great example of thinking outside the box and working together as a team, including your son and therapists and teachers, like as a team, friends and family too, like together to work together to do this.
Yeah.
And such a testament. It's so cool, and at least an experiment to try. You never know. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, what my mission right now is, ever since that judge ruled the way they did, my mission is to normalize a conversation around non-traditional family structures, period. And that could be, like, my dad's a sperm donor to a woman in Seattle, and how do we talk about that, right? And or just it doesn't have to look like a cookie cutter way. We're no longer in 1952, and so like families look different, and that gets to be celebrated as long as it's something where every member of the family has a voice and where every member of the family is being considered.
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that.
I'm also curious kind of how you have navigated this with other like family or being kind of more out about it in your life.
So I just came out of the closet in September. um,
Oh, wow.
yeah. I mean, it's not that I was hiding it. I just wasn't public about it until
Yeah.
September. I went to Burning Man and had an epiphany at Burning Man, and came out and I was like, I'm coming out of the closet. And so it was hard. It was hard. I family comes from different generations where expectations were different.
Yeah.
And so at first it was very hard. And then we all just developed some boundaries. And in the book, I write about coming out. I have a whole chapter on it for this reason, because there's lots of fuck ups in coming out. And like, you think about, okay, am I going to, like, there's layers of coming out. Am I coming out to my coworkers, to my adult family members, my children, other community members? And how do I prepare myself for that? Social media. What should I be very careful about? And what kind of reaction should I be prepared for? And I tell people in the book, like, prepare that people aren't going to be happy about it. Like, just prepare yourself. Someone is not going to be happy about this. And like, as long as you're ready for that, and it's like, okay, now, thank you for telling me how you feel. And now we're going to set some boundaries. So if you would like to take me off of your newsfeed at this point, that'd be great. And going forward, we will love each other. We will not discuss this topic anymore. And then you just gotta set some boundaries on both sides, so that the relationship can continue to flourish, even though some topics are going to be triggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry it was hard. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's a testament to be able to try again, though, to open up, and not everyone's able to do that in their life for different. I think, sharing, coming out to people is a very personal decision in lots of different ways.
Mhm.
And it's never easy, and never necessarily an easy one. Even with a clear sign from Burning Man of like, I want to
Yeah.
do this, it's still, there's layers. There's layers.
Yeah, and like it needs there's probably a different conversation we could have just around like kids, right? And
Yeah.
and and the, the difference for me was my son has known since he was born. I read Pride Parade books to him all the time, and we talk about GLBTQ and which ones are mommy, and and so because I wanted it to just be natural. Like, this is just part of life, and like, of course we're not talking about things like sex, but we are talking about, like, like, mommy's going on a date night with Katie, and he also knows that mommy goes on a date night with him, right? And so, like, it's like now date nights are something that is just common, and I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I also would love to talk a little bit about community, because you touched on early. I mean, when we asked you like what your relationship sort of ecosystem is, and it was basically, I'm in a 50-person polysphere with people spanning the entire country. And this is something we've been hearing more and more, that people sort of, their polyamory, their non-monogamy is more community focused rather than, these are my two partners, these are my three partners,
Yep.
but like I'm in love with the community, and like I love the whole thing. And I'm just curious what it actually looks like for you, what community
Yeah.
looks like, and how you blend that with your own personal, like, either dating, partnerships, and how they all sort of flow together for you.
Yeah. So at first it was very much a like we would go like I said there were experiences, right? So I had my primary partnership, and then I had experiences that were outside of my
Hmm.
primary partnership for years. And then at some point there was a relationship, where one of us started dating someone, and so there was another relationship. And that's all it was for a long time. And then honestly, for me, it was after having a child. So after having my child, I lost like my sexual identity. I just like lost my connection to my body, and I freaked out because I'm like, like, this is a big piece of who I am. And so it was during COVID. We were all locked in our houses, and I set up a WhatsApp group, and I like reached out to all my former lovers. Like, there were like 6 of them at the time, but I was like, help, like, I don't know who I am. I like lost my mojo. Like, help me. And so we started doing like Zoom calls during COVID from like all over the country, and we were all just talking about whatever our sexuality was. I mean, like it was a very kind of happenstance thing, a haphazard thing. And then we started, after COVID opened up, we started just like having joint calls with everybody. Then we had like, let's all meet up in California. Wouldn't it be great to meet? And at that point, we had all become friends because we had these like weekly calls during COVID. And so they all got to know each other. There was no sex. There was like, no one was dating anyone else. We were all just in this group call together to help Candace find her mojo. Like that was literally what it was. And like, I think it used to be called in the diary of Candace, something anyway. And then it became the circle, and that's what it's called now. And it's like honestly kind of a social support group. And many people in this group are lovers with each other. I'm not lovers with all of them. I mean, maybe I connected with them at one point in time, but we're a community, and like I only have one other partnership outside of my marriage right now, that's like serious with a woman, like that's it. And so and like there may be one other bubbling up, but that's not like I'm dating 50 people.
Yeah.
And so it's the community that matters so much to me. It's the community that I bring together 4 or 5 times a year. We all fly to see each other, and that's why a lot of us are doing this. As that community is so valuable.
Yeah. I love the fluidity in that too, that it's not like, oh, hey, we were either friends, lovers, partners a few years ago, and now we don't talk at all. But that you can get on a Zoom or a WhatsApp, group chat and still bring that together, right? Like the ability to shift and transition relationships without ending them hard, without, and that's not to say that doesn't happen, but that on the whole, it sounds like you've been able to build lasting friendships and connections out of these dynamics.
And I almost feel like that's kind of the whole point of the book I wrote. Like the book is called Polyagony, but in the end, like it's all worth it because you have this beautiful flowering community. And like maybe all of the missteps along the way led me to the point where now there's a lot of trust. We've had a lot of crunchy conversations between a lot of different people, like and we love each other. And that's a gift that I would totally do it all over again if I had to. Because I'll give you an example. I was at an event last weekend, and I saw an ex-partner of mine. We dated for 2.5 years. It was fairly serious relationship, and we're no longer together, but we're still very good friends. And like my son still calls him his friend, and all of that. Their sons are friends, or my son is friends with his son. I was at this event with him. His ex-wife / son's mother was at the same event. She and I spent the whole evening hanging out, having a great time. We've never connected in like anything outside of friendship, but we're having dinner actually tomorrow night. And so like that's beautiful, right? Like that nothing had to end. Nothing had to be painful there. And we're able to continue to flow into and out of each other's lives.
Yeah.
Love
it. Yeah, I love the fluidity there, and just being able to communicate and be with others in whatever way that looks like, and be able to ebb and flow in that dance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love it. This has been lovely conversation,
Yes,
Candace.
yes.
And I know you've talked about your book a bit, and just give you one more chance to like plug it, throw it out there. And if there's any other work or any other anything you want to pitch out there for people that they should find.
Thank you so much for that invitation. So Polyagony, All the Ways We Fuck Up Open Relating, will be published later this spring. I think after this will air. And I'm very excited about that. I also have been, over the course of this past winter, I've been putting together a 6-month workshop series called the Liberation Series, liberating yourself from, the stories of your past, other people's expectations of your future, the stories you have about your body, the things you're afraid of in yourself, and your fears of intimacy. And I'll be leading a week-long retreat. These are things that I'll continue to do over and over again, the Liberation Series. And it's all in the same token of normalizing this conversation around non-traditional family structures. And so, check it out at polyagony.com. And there will always be links to the other things that I'm working on at that website.
Perfect.
Yes.
And links are in the show notes here for anybody who wants to go and didn't get a chance to write that down. So thank you.
Yes. Anything else before we let you go today?
Well, we're not just letting go. We're going to the bonus segment.
That's true. Before we transition to the bonus segment.
I just want to thank you for creating this venue for these conversations. You are pioneers. You're real pioneers, and everyone who listens to you agrees. And I think that these are super powerful, important discussions that you're hosting. So thank you.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for adding to it. Thank you for being one of them.
Yes, it wouldn't be possible without everyone who shares their story.
Yep.
So.
Yep. So amazing. Well, thank you, Candace. And listeners, if you want some more Candace, sign up for the premium subscription. We're going to jump over there right now, answer some fun bonus questions. But for anybody else, just have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Candace, for coming on and sharing your story. We're excited to get it out there, and we're excited to spread the word about all of the work that you're doing, too.
Yes, thank you from my side as well. And a quick reminder to listeners, go grab a copy of not just this next book, but the entire trilogy.
All of them.
All of them you can pre-order on the links in the podcast show notes. Check it out. And yes, thank you again, Candace, for coming on and sharing your story.
We also wanted to remind you here about a couple of upcoming events. The first is tomorrow. That's March 12th, 2026. It's our next community workshop with Marla Renee Stewart called Seduce Your Lover. More information can be found over on the community tab of our website.
But there's still time to join the community and join the workshop. So if you're thinking, man, I'd love to seduce my lover this week, well, we got you covered.
You can learn how.
Or lovers. You can seduce all of your lovers with this one workshop.
And the other thing we wanted to remind you all about is something we've been talking about for a while. We're so excited to invite you all to come join us May 1st to the 3rd, 2026, outside Orlando, Florida, for our event we're calling Relationship Recess. It's an opportunity to meet us in person and to hang out and have a lot of fun for the whole weekend. You're not going to want to miss it. Tickets are available. Go buy your ticket over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
Click on the banner at the top. You can't miss it.
Right.
And then the only other thing we have to tell you is that we will be back next week. We have a beautiful conversation with Thora Nisi. Truly a beautiful conversation. We cannot wait, and we will see you then.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.